Welcome to Fearless Wild Creative, a podcast for those who want to be led by confidence, guided by creativity, and grounded in nature. I'm artist and designer Megan Eileen. I have spent decades turning creative vision into a way of life. Each episode blends metaphor, story, knowledge, and practical tools. Whether you're growing your courage, your creative voice, your work, or your connection to nature, you belong here. Hey friend, welcome. This is a Fearless episode. As you probably already know, in this podcast every week I have a theme of either fearless, wild, or creative. And in this Fearless episode, I want to talk about risk tolerance and the different ways that we sort of navigate the unknown, because everyone has their own tolerance for risks, right? Like, why do some people thrive on risk and others avoid it like the plague? Or some people are right in the middle. But there are several reasons for this, but the one that I want to talk about today comes from psychologist Marvin Zuckerman. He did a lot of research on this and defined it in a way that I think is very interesting and also relevant to us as creators. So I will explain. The way that he defined this, he called it sensation seeking. And some people are high sensation seekers and other people are low sensation seekers. And he defined sensation seeking as the desire for novel and intense experiences and a desire to take risks for the sake of those experiences. So basically, if you are a high sensation seeker, you might have no problem taking risks, making bold moves in life, trying new things. You might get dopamine hits from new experiences, from starting projects, from just seeing what happens and exploring the unknown. You could also, on the downside, however, have trouble staying focused and finishing things, or maybe don't think things all the way through before jumping in. On the other hand, those that tend to be more low sensation seeking prefer routine and predictability. They could be cautious, more deliberative, more comfortable with structure and known calculated outcomes. They might be highly conscientious and not as interested in taking risks, especially just for the sake of them. And you might be somewhere in between, and that is great. And I'm sure we're all somewhere on that spectrum, right, between one extreme and the other. But we can still all learn something from this, I think, because even if you aren't one extreme or the other, you still might lean one way or the other. And this is a great way for us to help to understand the way we are and why we do certain things, and maybe even find a way to bring more balance to these traits in ourselves, which is the goal of why I'm talking about this. So stay with me. So why is this relevant to us as creators or entrepreneurs? Well, as it turns out, the traits that make us high sensation seekers are very similar to the ones that make us highly creative. Creativity takes risk to explore the unknown, to try new ideas, to be more open and willing to explore for the sake of it, right? These are all the characteristics of sensation seekers, as well as highly creative people. Makes sense, right? That they would go in hand. Does that mean that you can't be creative if you are low sensation seeking? No, it does not necessarily mean that, so don't worry. That is not the nail in your coffin of creativity. No matter which way you lean on this spectrum, there are positives and negatives, and it's about finding that balance. So on the one hand, if you are more hardwired towards low sensation seeking, you might want to try to adjust that a bit so that you can be more creative and more bold and more open to, being your full creative self and trying new things and take a few more calculated positive risks. On the other hand, if you are super high sensation seeker and taking a bunch of unnecessary risks, maybe you want to try to balance that out a little bit more and think through things before jumping, or add some structure, intention, some boundaries to your process, because too much of this without some structure can actually inhibit us from accomplishing our creative goals, because we're losing focus on what those goals are and maybe not always finishing those things that we love to start. Now, I want to talk about the two type of risks briefly, and then we'll bring it all together. For the purpose of this conversation, we'll break it down into sort of two overall categories of risk. There's calculated risks and unnecessary risks. And I think the calculated risks are the ones that we all want to be able to do more of if you're low sensation seeking, and maybe do with a little more intention if you are high sensation seeking. And calculated risks are the ones where the potential reward outweighs the realistic downside, and you've gathered enough information to make a smart and grounded decision. So, maybe starting a business after saving money and testing your idea instead of just quitting your job without a plan. One is still risky, but you have legitimate reasons to believe that the outcome could be positive and the outcome is worth the risk. So these type of risks grow our resilience and our confidence, and they're often aligned with the process of growth instead of just being impulsive. So then on the other side of the coin, we have those unnecessary risks, which tend to be more impulsive choices, possibly made without enough reflection or research or preparation. And maybe you're just jumping into relationships or partnerships or making big life moves that you haven't really thought through, or maybe ignoring the signs of chaos from the start and acting out of impatience or desperation. So clearly two different things. All right, so we have high sensation seekers, we have low sensation seekers, and we have calculated risks and unnecessary risks. So what is the goal here? Well, like I talked about in the last Wild episode, the goal is always balance. And so if you are high sensation seeking, maybe taking too many risks and you aren't thinking things all the way through, you're letting yourself get distracted by experiences just for the sake of novelty and not for your actual purpose or goal. And you could be taking risks out of boredom or curiosity, but you don't really think about the why or the consequences. And consequences don't have to mean danger. It doesn't have to mean jumping out of an airplane and crashing. It could just mean that it's distracting you and keeping you from doing the things that would get you to a certain goal. I mean, we only have so much time. And if we spend it on things that, if we're just sort of following our, squirrel brain, and we don't actually stay focused on the things that are going to help us to get where we want to go or reach our goals, then it's detrimental. And I am absolutely guilty of this. This is what describes me mostly. It's not that I take a lot of dangerous risks anymore. I mean, I did in my teens and in my 20s. That's how it was manifesting then. But now it is just more that it distracts me from my goals. And I get excited with things in the moment or the excitement of new things. And if I don't keep that in check, it can keep me stagnant in a place that I don't want to be. And then I get anxious, which is actually really interesting if you think about it. We as high sensation seekers tend to think that we're always moving forward, right? If you're doing and you're doing and you're doing, you must be moving forward. But all of that doing without some thought process, some intentionality actually can keep you stagnant because you're running all over the place, but you're not actually going forward. So that's kind of important. So another thing that I tend to do is if there's a basic task-oriented thing that I have to do, like administrative stuff or folding the laundry, or I hate task-oriented things with a passion, I will find something more exciting and then throw myself into it and then probably get obsessive about that. And it's all under this guise of, well, I'm creating something new, I'm accomplishing something, so it's totally fine that I'm not doing the mail or the laundry or all these things that I really don't want to do. And sometimes, it is productive and sometimes that actually works out, but also sometimes it's just a totally different direction that I'm going in, and it doesn't actually, it doesn't help me to follow through with anything or get where I actually want to go. So I have to keep myself in check with that, and I will tell you more about how I learned to do that in a moment. All right, then on the other side, if you are a low sensation seeker and you have always stuck to the safety of a 9-to-5 job, even if you aren't actually happy in it, you might want more. You crave more freedom, more something of your own. But you're so set in your routine that you could be missing out on trying new things and experiencing something incredible that you don't even know was possible. And maybe you're just being so cautious and you can't get beyond a certain point in your career or your life or your relationships, or you're creating. That's important. So you might want to try to balance that out a little bit. So that is, again, why we're here, to try to balance this out from whether you are one way or the other. So how do we do that? Are we just hardwired and there's nothing that can be done? Well, thanks to research on neuroplasticity, we know that we can adjust and rewire our brains to an extent. So we can build new habits, new processes. So this is good news, right? But how do we do that? As usual, with change like this, we're going to start small and use repetition. That is almost always the key to stuff like this. So if you are a high sensation seeker, then there are a few things that you can do. You can sort of design your own sort of like filter questionnaire before you start making big, bold decisions or starting new projects or jumping into or out of a relationship, a job, an airplane. Create like a little questionnaire for yourself that helps you to kind of check in on it first. So you could ask things like, will this bring me closer to the life I'm trying to build? Or to my goal of blank? Is this a distraction or a direction? Is there something that I'm trying to avoid by doing this instead? Like mail or, emails or whatever. Will I still care about this next month? And again, then why? Ask why do I want to do this? So these types of questions can help keep impulsive risk in check without killing your creative energy, because the creative energy is awesome, right? Like we don't want to kill that. We just kind of want to ground it and kind of pair it with some intentionality. So that way you're still allowing yourself to do that process and to reach into all of that amazing like atmosphere of just all these ideas floating around and grab onto them, but you're keeping it contained within a structured amount of time. So it's not taking over your week. It's not taking over your goals and the things that you have to do to reach those goals. What's great about that is you can even then, give yourself until the next week to reflect on what it is that you did and determine if it's worth continuing. So you can ask yourself those questions and filter questions to determine whether you do want to pursue it further, if it does work as something that is going to help you get where you want to go. So you're able to at least, without it snowballing into something that is now taking over the next month of your life without actually thinking through if it is something that you should take a month of your life to do. So I know that's one thing I do because that really helps me a lot. Because novelty and excitement plus a little bit of boundaries can make for some really powerful creativity without the distracted squirrel effect and without getting burnt out. For people like us, sometimes it takes more strength and bravery to actually finish something, since we tend to have no problem starting things. But the most powerful creators are intentional, because chaos can keep us stuck. I mean, there's something really beautiful about it, and I do love myself a little bit of chaos, but it can keep us stuck if we don't ground it a little bit and make it intentional. So ask yourself, are you feeding your vision, or are you just feeding that part of your nervous system? Okay, so now I'm going to talk to the low sensation seekers. And here's a few things that I think you can try. And remember, we're starting small and using repetitions. So this is to kind of help you to get more towards a little bit higher sensation seeking, just so that you can create a little more balance and take some more risks that you might need to be taking. So we're starting small, use repetition, and so you could try like just little simple things like ordering something different at your favorite restaurant, wearing something more bold than you usually would, like speaking up in a discussion that you might normally stay silent in. And if you're creating something, mess up on purpose, use a different medium. If you usually do watercolor, then use oils. If you usually play piano, play guitar. And the reason that this works, even though it seems really insignificant, is that it is slowly teaching your brain that novelty and change and risk can be safe. It builds that confidence one little bit at a time without overwhelming your stress response. All right, so another thing you can do is we can practice some reframing mantras. So instead of saying, well, what if this goes wrong? Ask, what if it goes right? And teach yourself to view calculated risks as potential versus danger. Because they're calculated risks. That's the whole point, right? They're not unnecessary. We've calculated through them. And if you are a low sensation seeker, then you probably are calculating. And so it's probably a calculated risk. So it probably has more potential than it does danger. So you have to remind yourself of that. You can also create a ladder of like things that are least scary to most scary and slowly move yourself up that ladder one rung at a time with consistency. So progressively challenging yourself and desensitizing your fear just a little bit at a time, So like first rung, share your art with a friend. Second rung, post it on Instagram. Third rung, enter a contest. I mean, that's just a little example, but you get what I mean by the ladder thing. And you're going to stimulate that dopamine safely because the dopamine fuels the risk-taking and the reward-seeking behaviors. So you're just kind of training your brain like that. I mean, there's other little things too, like even just taking cold showers or traveling somewhere new or learning a new skill or just walking up to a stranger and start talking to them. I mean, obviously in a safe place, not like a dark alley, but just things like that can help to build risk-taking into your week and make it a practice. Like one day a week, you can, just like we were talking about with the high risk seekers, you have a few hours that you've planned out for this, then you can do the same thing and schedule in like a day of the week or a few hours to do something you wouldn't normally do, something that's more adventurous. So it's intentional and it's consistent, right? No matter if you tend to be more high or low sensation seeking, the message here, I think, is that we can learn to adjust it a bit if needed so we can get past what might be holding us back. And if you're not where you want to be creatively or in work or in life in general, sometimes balancing out those traits can help us move forward. And acting like that person that you want to become, like consistently, is one of the most effective ways to grow into that identity. It's the fake it till you make it approach. It's small and consistent steps that are intentional. So this week, if you're low sensation seeking, take one small risk. Call it your fearless experiment. Choose something you'd normally avoid and do it anyway. And if you are a high sensation seeker, try asking yourself those filter questions when you're about to jump into something, and also try creating that time block at the end of the day or one day a week or whatever to experiment, to be chaotic, to do something thrilling, but again, with intention and just a little bit of structure. Because for all of us, I think the balance is to be bold but be grounded and taking calculated risk instead of unnecessary risk, and keeping in mind what your goals are and where you want to get to in your creativity and in your life. So come message me on Instagram or email me and tell me, are you high or low sensation seeking, and how do you feel that is helpful to you or holding you back? And if you want some more one-on-one help in your creative endeavors to reach your goals, reach out to me. I would love to set a time to talk to you and get to know you, work on a plan to help you become your most creative self and create that life that you are looking for. Thank you for being here, and until next time, be fearless, wild, and creative. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening. If you're curious, you can find my paintings and all my creative tools on my website at meganeileen.com. If you feel like you could use some one-on-one creative consulting or coaching to reach your goals, you can book a time with me. I would love to talk to you. You can also join us in my masterclass where I teach you how to create magical rentable spaces on your own property. Visit styleforprofit.com or just come connect with me on Instagram at meganeileen. If today's episode sparked something, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might appreciate it. Until next time, be fearless, wild, and creative.